Hey guys, Dave with First Place Auto Parts. You know, one thing's for certain if you own either a classic or a late model car or truck, and that is at some point you're going to have to change your oil. If you drive a lot of miles, especially if you live outside of a big city and you rack up the miles, the chances are you're going to have to change your oil sooner or later. And what if I told you that you could save between 30 and 40% on your oil changes by doing it yourself? In today's video, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the actual physical components that it takes to change your engine oil. Every vehicle is different, so we won't go into the specifics for each car, but what we will talk about are the tools and the chemicals and components you need for a successful oil change. Look guys, engine oil is the lifeblood of your car. There's only two fluids you gotta have in a vehicle that are really critically important. One's coolant, the other is the engine oil. And the engine oil, you gotta change every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. So guys, stay tuned. And today we're gonna take a look at the components and the chemicals. Today in the First Place Auto Parts studio, we're talking about essential oil change components. Hey guys, if you like today's video, please consider subscribing to the First Place Auto Parts YouTube channel. We're going to continually be adding new videos every week, and we go to some pretty cool car guy stuff I'm pretty sure you're going to want to see. So when we change the oil in the car, there's a couple things we want to do before we even start to touch a wrench. And then the first thing is we want to warm the engine oil up. Take it for a short drive around the block. Look, engine oil, it's going to get hot, 180 to 200 degrees. So we want to get the engine oil warmed up, but also when we get back, we want to give it a chance to cool down so we don't burn ourselves when we drain the oil out of the oil pan. The other thing that typically we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get the vehicle up in the air. That means using either suitable ramps or a jack and jack stands. Look, don't be tempted to work underneath your car just using a floor jack. I've seen vehicles slip off floor jacks before and they come down fast enough. There's no way you're getting out from underneath that thing. So be safe when you're doing that. Also, make sure you have some of these rubber gloves on hand. Changing the engine oil, it's not a very clean process. As a matter of fact, it's a little slippery and a little messy. These things will go a long way in making your cleanup a little better. So you've got your vehicle up in the air, you've got your engine oil warmed up, and the first thing we want to do is we want to go to our owner's manual and find out in the back the specifications, how much engine oil we need for our vehicle. That's critical, guys, but also make sure you pay attention to the viscosity. You got to use the proper oil viscosity or it may not work properly, which can either create engine damage or set engine codes. So the car is up in the air, our engine oil is warm, but we let it cool down. And the first thing we want to do is we make sure that we have an oil drain pan that's big enough for the capacity of the oil that's going to come out. I know for a fact that the modern LS 5.3 liter in the Tahoes takes 8 quarts of oil. That's 2 gallons of oil. We want to make sure that we have a drain pan that's big enough. You're going to want to have oil filter wrenches, and there's a bunch of different types. There's a band type of oil filter wrench. You've got this end cap that goes on the end of the oil filter and you use a ratchet with, or you can use one of these rubber strap wrenches. And look, these things are really nice. Again, going back to that LS engine, that oil filter fits in a really tight recess next to the oil pan. Hard to get to. This thing has never failed me in getting that oil filter out. So you have your options. It's really vehicle dependent which one's going to work best for you, but that's why I would recommend getting underneath it and kind of scoping things out. Before you go buy your oil and your oil filter, maybe get your wrench at the same time, but look underneath your car to see what type of wrench is going to work best for you. And then finally, make sure that you get the appropriate size wrench for your oil drain plug. There is nothing worse than stripping out the oil drain plug or buying a used vehicle from the guy who did use the wrong wrench and stripped it out, because getting that bolt off can be not only difficult but also messy, and rarely do you have a replacement oil drain plug once you realize you've already loosened it up, all the engine oil's out, and God forbid it's the only car you had to drive. So make sure you check out the condition of your oil drain plug before you do take it out, but make sure you get the proper wrench. If it's a metric wrench or a standard American sized wrench, make sure you use the right one. And whatever you do, do not be tempted to use an impact gun on your drain plug on your oil pan. I've seen a lot of these things over tightened, and not only stripping out the threads on a drain plug is no fun, because typically what that requires is removal of the oil pan. So there are some precautions you want to take when you're changing your oil, but as far as the tools go, they're pretty straightforward. Just get the right size drain pan, the oil filter wrench that fits your oil filter, and the correct size drain plug wrench, and you're ready to not only change your oil out, remove the old engine oil, but also remove the oil filter. All right, now that you drained all the oil out of your actual engine itself, now it's time to put the drain plug back in and install the oil filter. Now look, Putting the drain plug back in, you can have one of two things. Your drain plug could either have an O-ring that seals it, or it could have a crush washer. It's always a good idea to replace the crush washers, and you can buy these things fairly cheaply, again, at an auto parts store, but just make sure that you know which one you have. The O-rings, they tend to last a little bit longer, but crush washers, that's something that's actually you're going to want to replace with every oil change to make sure you don't have any leaks and that you don't over-tighten the plug. Also, when you go to put your oil filter on, cartridge type of oil filter is going to have this rubber O-ring on it. It's not uncommon for this O-ring to stick onto the engine block where the oil filter pad is. And you want to make sure that when you remove your old oil filter, this O-ring didn't stick to your engine. Because if it did and you go put your new oil filter on, chances are it's going to leak there. So the other thing you want to do is you want to put a light coat of engine oil on top of the new O-ring, so that it doesn't hang up when you're tightening it down. It'll make it easier to turn. Also, if your engine oil filter goes straight up, it's a 90-degree straight up vertical, it's a great idea to add some engine oil to this oil filter before you install it. That way the engine doesn't have a dry start. Putting engine oil in your filter will get it oil pressure built up a lot quicker than if you put a dry filter on. So when you put this filter on, typically you thread it on hand tight, and then you want to tighten it a quarter turn past where it starts to feel like it's starting to get snug, and that should be enough. Just do not over tighten these. Look, you don't want to leave it too loose. We don't want any leaks, and we certainly don't want the oil filter to fall off. But any more than a quarter of a turn is guaranteed it's going to be a chore to get it off the next time. And like I said, when you go to put your engine oil in, though, the proper viscosity and the proper amount, make sure that you use a funnel. This, especially with oil the way it comes today in these 5-quart bottles, it's very difficult, that initial pour, to get it to go where you want it to. And getting engine oil all over your engine or over your exhaust manifolds is guaranteed that thing's going to smoke for a long time as it burns that spilled engine oil off. So make sure that you have a funnel on hand, put it into the hole, and fill up your engine with the right amount of oil of the proper viscosity. Now you're ready to button everything up. You slide out from underneath it. It's a great time to clean off underneath your vehicle any leaks with some carburetor or brake cleaner and a paper towel. You don't want drips on the driveway floor, but also you don't want it to collect a lot of dust. So cleaning up the area that you just serviced is a great idea, especially around the oil filter pad before you put that oil filter on. Good idea to keep that nice and clean and free of oil debris. Guys, once you've done that, make sure that you keep track of how many miles you put on your oil. You can get the free mileage, the little stickies that go in your windshield, write that down, put it up there to remind you when to change your oil the next time, and you've done it, guys. Look, you've done it. Not only did you do it yourself, and you worked on your own vehicle, so you have the knowledge of how to do it, but you know it was done right, and you save some money to boot. Guys, I appreciate you watching this video. You can change your oil, and it's something that every person should know how to do. Look, as things get more and more expensive, just having the technical know-how of how your vehicle works and how to do the basic service stuff not only will save you money in the long run, but it'll give you confidence to know that the job was done right. I appreciate you watching this video, and until next time, keep the hammer down and keep it between the guardrails.